I'm a female in my early 40s, and this happened a few months ago. It was dusk. I set out on our usual walking route, needing to clear my head after a heated argument with my husband. It was the same path we walked nearly every day, but this time I was alone. As I walked, I approached the old, creepy house that always gave me the chills. This time, though, there was an older man sitting on the porch. His presence was unsettling, and as I passed by, he simply stared at me, his eyes following my every step. I tried to shake off the feeling of unease and continued on my way. On my return trip, as I neared the house again, the man called out to me. He asked for my help, saying he had bad knees and needed a little pull to get up from his chair. My instincts screamed at me to keep walking. I had seen enough Dateline episodes to know this could be a trap, but against my better judgment, I decided to help him. As I got closer, a rancid smell hit me, and I knew something was off. I extended my hand to help him, and he grabbed my wrist with a grip that felt like a vice. Panic surged through me as I realized I was in trouble. He pulled me closer with terrifying strength, and I struggled to break free. "Come on, girl, I need your help," he said, his voice so disturbing. He stood up on his own and lunged at me, trying to drag me into the house. I screamed and swung my arms wildly, desperate to fend him off. Just then, a neighbor appeared, asking what was happening. The distraction was enough for me to break free. "Nothing," I muttered, and I bolted for home. My heart was pounding. When I got home, I told my husband everything. He was shocked that I had offered to help the man, knowing it wasn't like me to approach strangers, especially when alone. We called the police and returned to the house to confront the man. But when we arrived, the house was closed up and looked vacant. The police arrived and listened to my story. They checked the house but found no sign of the man. The place appeared to be empty. They told me to contact them if I saw him again. All night, I couldn't stop thinking about what he might have done to me if I hadn't escaped. But where did he go? Was that even his house? Or had he just picked it to lure in a vulnerable woman? Weeks passed, and my husband and I continued our nightly walks, always passing by that eerie house. We never saw the man again, and the house remained lifeless. To this day, I still can't believe I was foolish enough to fall for whatever his sinister plan was. The memory haunts me, and probably always will. This took place when I was 19. I liked camping alone, deep in the woods. Since I was going through a breakup, it was a chance to disconnect, to find some peace. So, one Friday after work, I packed my gear and drove to a remote spot I had read about online. It was miles away from any sign of civilization, surrounded by thick trees and underbrush. I set up my tent as the sun dipped below the horizon. The forest grew darker, and soon, the only light came from my small campfire. The sounds of the woods at night were strange and eerie, but I told myself it was all part of the experience. The crackling fire and the distant hoots of owls were oddly comforting at first. Around midnight, I decided to turn in. I crawled into my tent and zipped it up tight. As I lay there, I heard a faint rustling outside. Probably just an animal, I thought, but the sound grew closer and more deliberate. Footsteps, human footsteps. I held my breath, listening intently. The steps stopped right outside my tent. I could see the shadow of something or someone through the thin fabric. My heart pounded. I wanted to call out, but fear had me stuck. Minutes felt like hours as the shadow stood still. Finally, the footsteps moved away, fading into the distance. I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light, maybe my imagination playing tricks on me. Exhausted, I eventually fell into a restless sleep. I woke up just before dawn. I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. I could see my breath, it was so chilly. My camp looked untouched, but there was something on the ground that made my blood run cold. A single muddy boot print, much larger than my own, right outside the tent flap. I glanced over and I saw what looked like a trail of papers, or trash. As I walked towards them, I noticed these were Polaroid pictures, not trash. Every single photo was of me camping the night before. Someone had been watching me and taking pictures of me all night, and I had no clue. I packed up quickly, eager to leave. As I hiked back to my car, I felt watched. I glanced back once and thought I saw a figure standing among the trees, but when I looked again, it was gone. When I got to my car, there was another Polaroid under the windshield wiper. It was a picture of my house. I got in my car and sped off. A few weeks went by, and I was living in fear, waiting for something to happen or someone to show up at my house. Nothing ever happened. To this day, I still wonder who was out there with me that night, and what their intentions were. What did those pictures mean? This happened last month. I was on my way to visit a friend in another state, cruising along an empty road. The darkness pressing in from all sides made me feel like I was the only person left in the world. Around midnight, I felt the need for a break. My eyes were heavy and I had to pee. I saw a sign, Exit 9 Rest Stop ahead, and decided to pull over. The next one was several miles away. It was one of those isolated spots, surrounded by woods, with a small building and a few parked cars. The lights flickered. It was a complete horror movie vibe. As I got out of my car, a shiver ran down my spine. The place felt deserted. I noticed an old, rusty pickup truck parked a few spaces away. There was no one inside, but the engine was running. I thought it was odd, but shrugged it off. Maybe the driver just needed to stretch his legs. I headed towards the restroom, the fluorescent lights inside buzzing loudly. The place looked run down with cracked tiles and graffiti on the walls. As I washed my hands, I noticed a strange noise, a sort of scraping sound coming from one of the stalls. I called out, but no one answered. I knew better, but decided to check. So I pushed the stall door open. It was empty, but the window above was open, letting in a cold breeze. Feeling uneasy, I decided it was time to leave. As I walked back to my car, I saw a man standing by the pickup truck. He was staring at me, his face shadowed under a hood. Something about him made my heart race. He looked like he was waiting for something, or someone. I started walking faster, glancing back only to see him start to walk towards me. I panicked. I fumbled for my keys, my hands shaking. Just as I got into my car, the man broke into a run. I slammed the door and locked it. My heart was pounding so hard. The man reached my car, banging on the window with his fist, his eyes wide and crazy. I floored it and peeled out of the parking lot. My rearview mirror showed the man standing in the middle of the road, watching me drive away. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely keep the car on the road. After a few miles, I started to calm down, but something felt wrong. I realized I hadn't seen another car or person since leaving the rest stop. It was like the world had been emptied. I turned on the radio to calm myself, but all I got was static. Did I just drive into a warp zone? Seriously, what the hell is happening? When I finally reached a small town, I pulled into a gas station, desperate for some human contact. I told the attendant about the man at the rest stop, hoping to make sense of what happened. The attendant's face turned pale, and he told me something chilling. A woman had disappeared from that rest stop just a week ago. Her car was found with the engine running, but she was never seen again. He called the police. The police later questioned me, but they found no trace of the man or the woman. No fingerprints, no evidence, nothing. The old pickup truck was gone too, leaving only tire tracks in the dirt. I know I escaped something terrible that night. The rest stop has since been closed, boarded up like it never existed. But I still wonder, what could have happened? It will probably haunt me forever.